You're listening to Infinite TBR, the podcast where we try not to buy more books. I'm Smack.
And I'm Gabi. Spoiler alert! We're going to avoid major spoilers, and when we can, warn when we're going to discuss a particular book in detail so you can avoid that part of the episode. You can also check the show notes for time-stamped flags identifying potential spoilers.
Hey, it's been a while.
It sure has.
I missed you.
I missed you too. We text every
we do
every day,
truly,
but
it's not the same.
It's been very busy.
Sure have. The last couple months have been a lot. Honestly, the a lot hasn't even really finished, but
it is lessening.
Maybe for you.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, mine's just typical work. Mine's gearing up to go to the Netherlands for a conference. There's only so much.
Which is very stressful, but also you get to go to the Netherlands.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be fun.
So, it'll be stressful until I leave.
Is work paying for it?
And then, theoretically, but they, I don't get reimbursed until I come back. So, I have to pay for it all up front.
Credit card points.
Yeah, sure. Interest.
Face you're making.
And my presentation's on the last day.
Oh no.
Which means I have to stress about it the whole time.
Oh,
so
that's too bad.
I'm salty about that. And I feel like that happens every time I try to do a presentation.
It's because they know you get stage fright.
Yeah, they personally, whoever runs that conference is ooh, Gabi, we know that she hates
you need to make friends with whoever is in charge
I do,
of that.
and then slip them a 5.
A 5?
That's enough for a bribe, right?
For an academic, maybe.
Right? No skin off their nose. Anyway, we're focused.
Sort of.
But it's gonna be back!
It is good to be back. And you will hear Loki in the background.
As always.
Because I think the cone makes him breathe as if he's snoring even when he's awake.
Yeah, it definitely is.
He's been wearing a cone for a while. It's going to continue.
Struggly. Anyway.
Welcome back.
Welcome back! To all and sundry, and to us and each other.
How many good books have you read recently? Because I've been reading a lot of mediocre books.
So I'm I hesitate to say that because a lot of the books I've been reading have been Smack Shelf books.
Oh.
But kind of the same. But that's not entirely fair. I was sort of talking to you about this earlier, but one of the problems was that Witch King by Martha Wells snuck its way in there. And
once you read a book of such high caliber that it sort of tilts,
unlocks all your things,
then everything else is
especially just
subpar.
In the wake of that yeah,
that's hard.
And there were a lot of this. I also biased it a bit because what I started doing was I realized that a lot of the books you gave me I could get on audiobook very easily. And I was looking for books I could audio and kind of especially pre-book crawl, get out of the way.
Yeah.
And to help me eat into some of the Smack Shelf stuff because the size of the Smack Shelf has started to grow.
You have sounded a little worried in text when we discuss. But you brought back a sizable chunk of Smack books.
I very specifically brought back one more than you gave me, so that I felt like I was making progress.
I'm really proud of you.
But I also didn't want to stress you out before you get your bookshelves installed.
I appreciate that.
And struck a balance.
We've sort of stalled out on that. I will be at some point, as a very late Christmas/birthday present, gonna get some
wraparound built-in bookshelves.
Built-in bookshelves along the top of 2 walls in my bedroom.
I'm so excited.
I know, it's gonna be amazing, but we're it's too expensive to do just
it's a huge project.
Drake carpentry. So we've been trying to find IKEA boxes or some kind of closed shelving or cabinetry that we can make.
What's this situation? Can't you just replicate that situation?
We want it to be closed with a door.
Oh, those, but
these.
Wow.
With glass in the front, too.
Interesting.
Fancy.
I actually, every time I see this, I'm that's such a good idea, and I wish I could do that to all my bookshelves, because I have to think, it helps with the dust.
So much. So that was sort of the condition.
And then you could play, if you made them yourself, you could play with stained glass and do so many fun proofs.
Oh, that would be fun.
Because I'm, like, thinking, like, my grandfather makes us furniture.
Yeah.
So I'm, like, stuck with does not connotate it the way that I want to connotate it, because I love his furniture and I want all of my furniture to be my grandpa's furniture. But it's hard to have that happen in my apartment.
Yes.
Because I would really like to have a house full of grandpa's furniture.
Yes.
And I can't do that.
And everything he makes that is in your apartment is amazing.
Yes.
It's like really beautiful, high quality stuff.
So,
but you have
if
tiny little apartment.
And if I get a whole bunch of furniture aside for that apartment and ever manage to upsize, it's suddenly going to look very disproportional. You see kind of the problem.
You just have to make sure that wherever you upgrade to has a guest room.
Right.
And that one guest room
is the size of my apartment. But I was just thinking, if he makes me, like, I should figure out how to have him build them with this concept in mind so that I can fill in.
The shelves here, they lift up and then you can push them in. And
I love that so much.
I love it so much. So we have sort of stalled out, but, like, we've been busy.
Sure. Bob and real busy.
Yeah.
So
it feels weird to disclose, but we've been busy. My dog got cancer. There was a tumor. It had to be removed. The margins were bad, so we went through 4 weeks of radiation. And apparently there are only about 150 veterinary radiologists in the entire world, but 2 of them work 15 miles away. Not even.
Nuts.
It's a 15-minute drive. It is insane. People, like, the oncologist was telling me that people, like, fly in from Hawaii or drive in from Vegas, like, 2 or 3 times a week instead of every day. Or stay in a hotel. I can't either. Like, it was rough. It was, yeah. And, like...
But now we're on the other side of it.
Yeah, because radiation sucks anyway, but because it's an animal, he had to be put under anesthesia every single day. And that did not agree with him. And then the burn kept spreading after radiation ended, which is very normal. But
is it?
We didn't know that.
I know nothing about the process.
I know way more than I want to. So
ever wanted to.
Yep. So that was my.
So all that to say.
February and March.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And then all that to say, I haven't wanted to throw all the books I've read back at you all at once.
I appreciate that.
And I found a balance.
Balance.
I think the balance is helpful for both of us, because
and hopefully it won't be 3 months before I see you again.
Exactly.
So,
and then at one point the shelves will appear, and you'll get a whole bunch back all at once. That's my dream. That's my dream. My true dream is to get the smack shelf down to a, like, sustained about 10 would be, like, ideal for me.
Yeah.
Because that feels...
10 is reasonable.
Yeah. It doesn't feel overwhelming.
9 library books out right now.
And I feel like if I could get, like, it down to that, like, it would be easier to read exactly as many as you keep that. You know what I mean? Instead of having, like, stay ahead of it.
Yes. And I know I handed over 2 of the 3 Jesse Mihalik books. Hunt the Stars and Eclipse the Moon. And I didn't get you the 3rd one because I haven't read it yet. But, like, I have 9 library books out. I am reading those. I know, it's kind of a panic thing. But, like, it was either that or buy them.
Right.
I needed them.
Look at you go.
So I'm trying to save a little space, a little money. And I read a bunch of ebooks. So I'm, like, trying to, like, slow down the flow for you a little bit. You know, it's a little out of control. Yeah.
It's finding a balance.
Exactly. So yeah.
So The Witch King by Martha Wells. I'll start there because it has been a while, so I can't froth the mouth about this as much as I would have fresh off of it. But I read it back in February while we were in Hawaii. Or I finished it in Hawaii. I started it before. I have a hardback copy. And I got, like, maybe 100 pages from the end the night before. It was, like, long enough that I couldn't stay up and finish it. And I was like, well, I guess it's just coming with me. And I've read a trilogy. I've read her Fall of Illyrian trilogy way back in the day.
She
Loved
just re-released that.
Well, she's about to release The Fall. She released the first 2, like, Illyrian, which are kind of like prequel, like, same universe, but, like, books preceding that trilogy, which I haven't read.
Those 2 released as 1 volume, they're, like, labeled author's version, which...
And I'm really excited. That's top of my book crawl list.
Yeah, and I suddenly, very abruptly, and have never before, like, identified with people who get excited about director's cuts, but, like...
I never made that equivalency before, and I've definitely been like...
That's a dumb thing to get excited
yeah.
about. Yeah.
And I'm out here being like, author's cut!
But, like, how... I mean...
And especially because after having read Witch King, the way she played with gender and queer, like, I was not expecting it to be as queer as it was, Witch King. And I don't remember there being any particular, like, queer, either explicit or implicit
like
queerness
coded...
in older stuff.
Okay.
That original trilogy that I read. And now I'm like, maybe this, like, author's release has been her chance to maybe...
push a couple of boundaries that were not...
It's kind of my hope, is that she used that as a vehicle to do something like that.
That would be really cool.
It would be really cool. But either way...
I have been thinking about it, like, what... Usually, when an editor makes a writer cut down their story, it's either because the parts they're cutting aren't necessary, or they aren't well written, or they don't further the plot. And so, like, what in God's name would an author put back in that actually belongs there?
Right. And it could just be that she can trade on her name so much now that she can do whatever
she wants.
That she wants.
And that's a possibility.
Right.
But also, I like to think that if she couldn't do something back then when she wasn't, Martha Wells, the author that everyone knows and has a HBO show coming out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something.
Anyway, when she was a little baby author.
Baby.
And couldn't, push as many boundaries.
Yeah. That's my hope.
She's allowed to now.
That's my hope and my dream.
Yeah.
But Witch King is about, how much am I going to be able to get into this? It starts with the character who, his name is Kai, which is short for something. Kai Esteron, I think. But his, like, title in this world is Witch King. That's, like, one of his...
Epithets?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay.
I think so. Something like that, where, like, that's what the, like, populace knows him as. So he's, like, almost a legendary...
Okay.
He's, he's not a king, per se.
Right.
But he has this sort of legendary status because of the role he had in a war.
Okay.
That, come the present in the narrative, was, I think, 100 years ago.
Okay.
So, like, barely living memory left. He's one of the only people left alive who remembers and knows how things went down.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. Which causes some very interesting
I like how you
stuff.
put that.
So, and the way she set up this narrative structure, I think, is so cool because and a lot of people would be into this and a lot of people would not be, but it flips back and forth between what's happening in the now and everything that went down from when he was baby demon. He's a demon prince.
Right.
To how and you get, like, hints in the present of, like, how he achieved this legendary status and these big things that went down in history. Because at one point they meet this, like, historian who keeps, like, trying to, like, badger him with questions. Because he's like, I got to meet the Witch King?
Right.
Tell me this. How is this person?
Source.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Kai is just like, oh, stop asking me questions. Because I'm on someone like, you guys don't actually care you want to hear what you already want to hear. So it's just, like, a very interesting thing. But, so it flips back and forth, so you get this progression of baby Kai growing into this legendary Witch King and the relationships he made with these other equally legendary people who have either, like, at this point died, or...
Does he age?
So the cool thing about Kai is he's a demon, which in this world means that there's, like, kind of like an underworld, which is more ephemeral, more, like, the people who live in the real world, their dreams and ideas shape
the underworld.
Yeah.
Okay.
How the underworld manifests in that space. And so distances are wonky.
Right.
Matter is wonky. And so the demons live in the underworld and have their own thing, but they have this very interesting pact from an even older war that predates Kai, where they have this deal with witches, where the demon, it's almost like a study abroad program, where demons will be sent to go possess dead bodies. Like, it's like it's not exactly religious, but it's a cultural understanding they have with this tribal culture on one side of the mountains, where when there's a body available, they have a deal where, like, the demons can come up, possess that body, and then they, like, live as humans for a given amount of time. And then eventually they can move back into the demon world or whatever. So when he's baby, he's possessing a human kid, has his human friends, and that starts, like, the day that basically the war starts impacting where they are, and they start getting drawn into this conflict.
Oh.
And part of that conflict, at one point, the big bad evil guys cut off the connection between the demons in the human world and the demons in the underworld, so there are certain gateways where they can, like, project their consciousness, so they can communicate, like, with effort with the demons who are still stuck in the underworld, but, like, Kai is trapped now, and, like, other demons are trapped in the above world now, and there's no going back.
So his body ages.
So his body would age. Does it? I think maybe not, actually. And then this is where we're gonna start getting into it's been a while, and I may forget some stuff, but if he finds out, and I don't think they're supposed to know this, he finds out that if he dies, his soul leaves the body, and if there's a fresh body around, he can, like, jump.
Oh.
But apparently that's a very taboo thing, so he, like, almost does it by accident when he's a kid.
Oops.
But doesn't, and in the middle of them having this conversation about how, like, never do that again, you're not supposed to do that, and he's like, I don't even know what it is you're telling me that I shouldn't have done, like, I don't understand, and then this whole, like, the war starts and whatever. And then during the course of the war, he finds out that he can do this body jumping thing, so the book opens in the present, with him all of a sudden becoming aware of his surroundings as this, like, disembodied soul. And he has no memory.
Oh, no!
The last thing he remembers is going out to have a conversation with this guy who he, like, may or may not be having a thing with.
Okay.
And so they're, like, having a moment in the garden. It's the last thing he remembers.
Oh, no!
And he wakes up in this, like, tomb, not connected to his body, because his body's dead. And what is happening is a bunch of idiot tomb raiders.
No!
Have been like, we can take this guy, and have basically broke into this tomb, and by breaking into the tomb got rid of all of these things. Protections.
So, like,
that were keeping him trapped.
Yeah.
And I keep calling him a demon. He's not a bad guy. That's just what they're called. Yeah. But he is very powerful. And he has a very powerful, really awesome best friend. And you don't want to piss either of them off.
This sounds amazing.
It's so good. So they break open his tomb, so he comes back to consciousness, and one of the things the stupid tomb raiders did is they brought a sacrifice for him. But one of the sacrifices, like, died en route. So they have a fresh body. And he's like, oh, hello. A body I can use. And, like, just murders them all. And then there's this mystery of what happened, who killed us, where's my best friend?
Right.
Tracks down his best friend. And then best friend is like, where's my wife? And then it's we will burn the world down looking for her wife. And it's just so great. And I love them so much. And the way I loved the flashing back and forth. I loved their friendship. I loved the way the gender plays out is, like, demons have their gender, but so they have the gender, they keep their demon gender. Mm-hmm. So whatever body they occupy, they, like, their pronouns are their demon pronouns. Okay. So Kai's always he, him, but the body he possesses, I think, is they, them. Okay. He's possessed like a she, her, like, but, like, there's that interesting dynamic, and just, I don't know, just, like, some things just played out so well, and I loved, like, he's just, like, so tired, and it's just, you know, he's been around for hundreds of years, he's seen, like, the worst of humanity. Right. He had, there's this, like, even more legendary than him is this historical, like, emperor figure, and they had, like, established how the New World Order was going to be when they defeated the big bad evil things. And the whole thing was like, basically like enforced democracy, kind of.
Okay.
And this guy that he, like, they had this, their own, like, deep relationship with, and he's, like, long dead because he's human.
Yeah.
The present politics is all about keeping it the way that he would have actually wanted to, because a lot of people in the present are reinterpreting it as this, like, no, the country where he came from should be in charge, and we should be, like, guiding everyone else. And Kai's whole thing is, like, that's what we fought to stop. And so, like, on a political level, so good and so powerful. The way things are executed, so good. The way, like, there's, like, this almost, like, new relationship that, like, is, like, almost a will they, won't they? And then, like, things drop, and it's like, oh, no. It's so hard to talk about this.
You're doing a really good job.
Ah! And then there's a brother of the wife. Like, they find the brother of the wife, and he gets into these, like, scholar spirals. So he didn't know they were missing.
Oh, no.
He didn't know his sister was missing. And his sister's, like, there's, like, an angel race, and she's, like, from this holier-than-thou angelic race thing. And so we get, like, how the friend and her wife met back in the day, and it was a very, like, enemies to lovers thing, and they're so cute. Everything is so stinking cute. And also just...
Alright, I guess I have to move that one up.
But it's not the type of thing that I would necessarily recommend to everyone, because it is complicated, and the, like, jumping back and forth is a lot, and some things were kind of, could get hard to follow. It was a lot of, like, flipping back and being like, oh shit, that's what they're talking about. And sometimes they'd, like, hint at stuff, and you weren't sure if you were supposed to understand, like, what they were understanding quite yet. And then all you have to do is, like, be patient for, like, 5 more pages. But I was doing a lot of flipping back and forth trying to connect the dots. I want to read it again, like, right now.
You should.
And I want there to be a sequel, and there is supposed to be a sequel, but there's, like, no...
There's no date.
No, there was, like, an interview where she mentioned that she's maybe working on it or something, and I'm like, but I want it now. But it does end.
Well
Yes.
enough to, like, stand on its own.
Yes, yeah. It's, like, the ending, honestly, like, it got me.
Oh, no.
My feelings. It was kind of unexpected. I would be excited for you to read this, if only so I could talk about, like, how certain things were executed narratively.
Oh, okay.
Because it was almost a, like, it was over before it began kind of thing.
Oh, no.
I know.
Oh, no.
In a, like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. We sure did this whole journey. Wow. So, yeah.
Okay, I have the
Anyway,
9 library books, but...
I mean, I have a copy.
I do, too.
Oh, yeah.
An ebook.
Oh, yeah.
Although if you're flipping a lot, it's a lot easier to flip with a physical book.
Yeah, and it is one of those ones, I think this is why Laura, I don't know if she's officially DNF'd, but she definitely, like, fell off the wagon. I think she got about halfway, and she was like, okay. It has a, like, cast of characters at the beginning, with, like, which is nice for, like, flipping back and be like, who is this name? Who is this person? And there's a map.
I know you're really getting excited.
I know, I love maps, and I just love big, complicated stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that is definitely not, for as much as I love it, there are about 10 people who don't, so, and that might be generous. So.
It's gotten really good reviews. I mean, it's been out for a while now, but, like, it's gotten very positive reviews. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Oh, and, like, there's so many different cultures, and, like, the way that she established those different cultures and their relationships with each other was...
deliciously thorough.
So thorough. So good. Like, their clothes are all different. They have, like, all different cultural stuff, and then, like, they'll meet each other and be like, oh, this is different. So there's, like, some of that culture clashing stuff. And the whole, like, witch demon thing has a very different perception on the other side of the mountains and all the other countries. So demons definitely get this, like, reputation at one point, and... and his best friend is a witch, and she's awesome!
I do like those.
That's the thing, I think you're gonna love his best friend so much.
I really like besties who go burn the world.
I know!
That is a trope I don't get anywhere near as much as I want.
Right? I always forget how so great it is. Especially when it's, like, executed so well. And they execute it so well. Okay, I can calm down now.
Are you?
Okay, so everything I read in the wake of that was fine. It was fine. Off my smack shelf, I think the ones that were the most, like, different and worth mentioning are The Witchery by S. Isabelle, which was relatively recent.
I think the sequel either just came out or is about to come out.
I don't know that I loved it enough to read the sequel.
I didn't love it enough to buy the sequel.
What, you think you're gonna read it?
I don't know. I haven't decided. I don't really remember it super well.
Right.
I have to go back and, like,
I thought
look at my review.
the characters were really well done. I liked the switching between all the viewpoints. That can get a little dicey in something as short, especially as a YA novel.
Yeah.
But I thought the characters were really well fleshed out, and then my biggest gripe, and this is, I don't see how this could be improved upon in the second book, is that we get some of their relationships as they are now, and then they start falling apart because of what goes on in the plot of the book. But I didn't feel like, because we had all this point of view switching, I felt like we didn't get enough of the positive interactions between them to really fully appreciate when things fell apart. And a lot of stuff was, like, when the witches' relationship started fracturing, then all of a sudden there was a flashback to how Logan met Iris, like the baby witch and the necromancer.
Right.
And it was, like, this really sweet, like, she was feeling all alone, and, like, she couldn't be a witch, and they had this really sweet moment, and I was like, if that had been at the beginning, if we had a really cute, like, prologue where, like, where each of them are coming from, and then, like, more good moments between each of them, so I could understand why they're friends.
Yeah, because a lot of it was just their fracturing relationships. And a lot of it was, like, fractures between individual people as well as, like, across the spectrum of all 4 or 5 of them.
And they each had their own arcs that were really well done, but it was hard to, like, be hit too hard by the friendships. Some of those, like, and, like, the effort they went through to, like, build them back up.
Yeah.
When I didn't fully, like, embrace them being friends in the first place.
Right. Yeah. So. I do remember that was probably one of the biggest issues I had with it. It was fun, though.
But otherwise, it was really fun.
What else?
And then there was She Was a Haunting by Trang, Tran, and that was creepy AF. I think I
just realized that's one of those ones you didn't hand back today.
My decision was give you, like, a couple of the oldest and a few that I think you'd be most eager to reread.
Yeah.
Which is why I gave
Okay.
That was my reasoning.
Yeah,
I don't know
that was good.
how well it was executed, but...
You did great.
Yay! So, the premise of She Is a Haunting is this Vietnamese American girl has to go live with her father, who is renovating this, like, French colonial house in a little village in Vietnam. Their family's estranged. Her parents are either divorced or separated long enough that they're effectively divorced. But he makes a deal with her that if she comes and, like, lives with him for the summer, then he will pay for college.
Yep.
And she wants to take that burden. She doesn't want to do student loans, and she doesn't want to put that burden on her mom, who she's like, her whole thing is like, my mom deserves better than that. So she goes to live with her father, with her little sister.
But she won't, like, neither she nor her father will tell anyone.
Nope.
Her father has said, you may not tell your mother, you can't tell your sister.
I don't remember that part. I thought she just chose not to because she was like, no one needs to know that this is the reason I'm doing this.
Like, for the most part, like, at the beginning, she was like, I don't want to burden my mother with this, but, like, at a certain point, he's like, don't tell her. You may, like, when they're starting to really clash.
That's true. He starts doing
she's trying to, like, get out of there,
yeah.
and he just has this financial hold over her.
Yep. And then the house is haunted.
Yep.
So, She Is a Haunting I listened to on the way back to Phoenix. I remember I got to Yuma for my, like, bathroom Starbucks gas break. Yes. And I texted you and I was like, this is unnecessary. I forget what had happened. I think she was like...
Something about bugs?
Yeah, there was a bug growing in her sister, like, under her sister's scalp.
Yeah.
And she had to, like, excise it with I was like, why is this necessary?
It had to come out.
But why was it there. You could have taken out that whole scene and it would have been the exact same book, but a little less gross.
I think it's really funny because it was like super gross.
It was.
It was super gross, but the cover is so pretty.
I remember I complained about this too because the cover is there's flowers coming out of her mouth,
Right?
And I was like, no. In the book, it's bugs going into their mouth. That is the thing. There are no flowers coming out of people's mouth in this book. There are hydrangeas that are growing
advertising
outside.
It's a beautiful cover, but there are way more bugs in the book than on the cover.
Yes. I don't think there are any bugs on the cover.
Certainly not enough.
I really wonder if the artist did the bugs first and someone was like, this can't be the cover. This cannot. And they're like, well, I guess we can make it flowers instead.
Because she has that, like, hydrangea bush or something that she has to dig up, right?
Yeah, because there are a bunch of skulls underneath it.
Right,
Yeah.
of course.
She, like, that was, like, one of the creepier parts. She comes outside and her dad's digging it up.
Yeah.
And just unearthing skulls and super chill about it. And she's like, what the actual F?
Yeah, there was a
He's like,
lot of,
shrug.
like... Yeah, I really liked how freaking weird it was.
Yes. It was a very smack weird horror book.
Yeah.
I was like, I see why you love this.
I also, like, I feel like I don't get enough books about, like, Vietnam
Yeah.
as it presently is, and it was really interesting to see it through basically an American high schooler
Mm-hmm.
and someone who is young enough to be very fluent in American teenager isms, but also to understand this legacy of both French and American colonialism.
Right. And I'm not familiar at all with the history of the region.
I had completely forgotten that there was any kind of French stuff going on till
so it was really
I was
interesting to get that.
Yeah. And, like, I wish I knew more about the food. That was a very sensory book. There was a lot of food, and I had to look a lot of it up.
But in some ways, it's maybe for the best that you don't look too closely at the food in that book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Don't eat. Don't eat. First thing she says.
First thing the ghost says is don't eat.
But what a good, perfect, creepy haunted house ghost vibes. And I love that there was like a good ghost.
Yeah.
And a
quote unquote good.
Yeah. And a very not good ghost. And then like also the house was almost its own ghost.
I really liked that. That was I really liked that.
And then my only thing with that is I felt that there wasn't... I wanted more emotional resolution between her and her father, and instead it ended up being this thing like, future Gabi here. Spoilers for She Is a Haunting last for just about a minute from here until the 33-minute and 45-second mark. His brain is already hijacked, and then, spoiler alert, he gets burned to death in the fire at the end, so they never have that, like... Yeah. But I really loved her mom raining him with a frying pan. I was like, yes!
Yes! Mom to the rescue.
Mom go!
That was... I forgot about that part. That was great.
So good. It was the best part of the book. So awesome. And the relationship between her and her sister was sweet, but I feel like they didn't get, like...
Yeah.
There was not much of a denouement, I think.
Yeah, that was... I think most of the denouement was dedicated to her saying goodbye to her crush.
Yep. There was like, we woke up in the hospital, and this happened, and this is where we stand, and bye, crush. And who was also very great. I loved her.
Yeah, the crush was good.
She's great. And then The Undertaker's duology by Nicole Glover. Glover?
I think it's Glover.
Which was also very different and fun.
I haven't read those in a long time, so I don't remember more than, like...
The magic system was very loosey-goosey, but I really liked that it was, like, they had this magic structure that's used exclusively by black people. Mm-hmm. And then there's, like, white people wizardry, and because it's post-Reconstruction era murder mystery, but with magic stuff. And there's this whole... as would happen in post-Reconstruction era America, where black people aren't allowed to do white people magic.
Right.
So, but they have their own magic that
white people
have no interest in whatsoever. Yeah. And the main character is great at it. Like, that's her skill is solving these, like, trying to...
And it's based on constellations.
Yeah.
And it developed alongside the Underground Railroad.
Right.
And so, like, more people who use the constellations as guides to escape the South, the more common this magic, like, the more people learned the magic. Yeah. Which was pretty dang cool.
Yeah, so we got a lot of flashbacks to the main character as a conductor, helping slaves flee the South, and that's how she ends up in cahoots with her husband, and they're only married because it's convenient.
Yeah.
Socially.
Literally just a marriage of convenience.
And they were both really, were conductors, and they worked really well
they're
together.
Excellent partners.
Yeah.
They're like best friends, but they're not in love.
Right.
At the beginning of the story.
Right.
I really enjoy that trope of like, oh no, I've fallen in love with my spouse.
Oh no. Especially coming from someone like her who's so practical-minded.
She's so, like...
And
yeah.
it was like, I can't ruin what we have by bringing this up.
Because they do have a really good...
Great friendship.
Yeah. An excellent relationship.
And they're out there solving murder mysteries.
Yeah!
So can't wreck that.
I know. Those were fun.
They were really fun.
I think I'm on the author's newsletter, and I think what she's working on now is another duology of, like, their grandkids.
Cute.
I know! And so, like, move forward a little more in time, and the magic has changed, and I don't know how many decades, though, so I don't know how much everything else has changed.
I wonder if the white people start trying to appropriate it, and that's a whole thing.
Probably, because...
It seems like it would be time of
Seems like it. Yeah.
Anyway. For those, my only thing about those, I think, was they'd make these, like, logic leaps for the murder mystery.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of convenient things tended to happen to make, like, different pieces intersect. Like, there would be multiple mysteries, and actually they would all end up being involved in the same thing. And I thought
I liked that, even though it was, it was kind of convenient. But...
I like it, like, the part of my brain that likes the convenient connecting pieces part of it liked it, and the part of my brain that was like, that stresses credulity was like, nah. And then some of the logic leaps they made to get to the solving of the mystery. Yeah, we're like, oh, we made that leap, okie dokie. I'll just go along for the ride, wee! But otherwise, they were really, really fun. Even so,
I didn't get those back either.
Nope.
Okay.
And then the Dred Chronicles by Anne Aguirre, which we keep bringing up, and you haven't gotten a chance to properly.
I mean, it's been so long.
I know, and now it's been so
that
long.
It's like, if you give me a couple of minutes to warm up, I'll start frothing at the mouth.
Right.
But like, it's been. I read them last fall, I think.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was a while ago. But
I did read them pretty quickly after because I wanted to be able to talk to you about them.
Yes. But then life intervened. But it's this trilogy by Anne Aguirre that's actually kind of older now, around 2014, probably 2013 to 2015, by Anne Aguirre, and they are science fiction, and it takes place in a prison ship where the society on Earth, it's not Earth, the nearest habitable planet, they're too good to perform executions.
Right.
So they took an old mining ship and repurposed it into a prison ship, and then they put everyone there who they would have otherwise executed. And like once a month they throw some supplies in and sort of close the door behind them again. And so it's really like this lawless dystopic wasteland in a ship.
Such a good unusual setup.
Yes. And you know what? In Provenance by Anne Leckie, which I read recently. Yeah, I just handed it to you. There's a character who escapes from a prison ship. And the main character, who's super naive, is like, because they don't call it a prison, they call it responsible confinement or something like that. Like, it's very clearly a prison ship. But like,
with
it's
a pretty
supposed to
sparkly label
right,
on
it's just where people who deserve to be executed, but we don't do that. So they go there and they just live there, and
we don't take care of them. We just shove them in a corner so we can forget about them.
And they have their lives.
And it's on them if they live or die.
Yep.
Not our problem.
No, they all just assume that everyone lives normally. Yeah. So to read Provenance and have the Dred Chronicles in the back of my head was very interesting. Because the Dred Chronicles follow this woman named Dred, who, at the beginning of the first one, she has recently taken over one of the fiefdoms in this prison ship. And she's like 6 months into this and still like finding her feet and trying not to get killed almost daily. And her whole appeal is that in my fiefdom, we're not cannibals.
Unlike another one.
I don't make you cut out your tongues.
Unlike another one.
And I don't make you worship me.
Unlike another one.
And
we're relatively normal here.
We're relatively normal.
I expect you to work to contribute toward our community.
And violence has to be directed. No more, like, mob violence. If you have an issue with somebody, you have to take it up at the end of the month where they do cage matches to the death. So, like, not normal, but also, like, not...
as normal as it gets on that ship.
Yeah, that ship, like, everyone else, like, crazy people are in charge of these other fiefdoms. Like, crazy people. And she has to work with one of them. Because... two of the ones on her left and right have decided, you know what?
They're gonna pinch her to death.
Yep. And so she makes a deal with a fourth fiefdom that cannot be trusted. And there's a really high body count in these books.
I remember texting you that. I was like, the body count is insane.
It's quite impressive.
It was a little traumatic because I would like get attached to all these characters in a book, and then by the end of the book, most of them would be dead.
Yep.
And then the second book would start, and I'd be like, okay, new set of characters to get attached to. And I start getting attached to them, and then a new set would all be die. And then I'd be like, the third book.
The third book was really, like I spent
surely like I can stay attached to the ones who have made it this far.
The last 2/3, the second and third of the third book, I was just like,
that's my favorite part.
Who can I trust? How many people are actually going to survive this? Because then they start, like, they're trying to escape the prison ship by the third one. And then they start, like, doing the math on how much food they can take with them and how much air they can recycle. And at one point, one of the guy who is essentially Dred's spy master before the kingdom all falls apart and everything, he comes to her and this other guy and he's like, we have to cull our numbers or we won't be able, like, we'll be on the ship on, like, a week. And it's very quiet, like, we have to kill at least a couple people. And it's possible they have already figured out that they need to kill us. So we're going to keep this on the down low.
So there's this whole mistrust
oh my
angle
gosh,
for most
nobody
of the third
trusts
book.
anybody.
And usually rightfully.
Yeah.
It's very like, who will stab who first?
Yes. And so to watch these, like, affectionate relationships and sometimes romantic relationships develop between these people who absolutely cannot trust each other and know they can't trust each other, and to watch them move sort of like at the far ends of a triangle and like who gets closer to the point first. And like, but like at one point I was just like losing my mind because there was like a gunfight and everybody was having so much fun. Because there are no guns on the ship, and they're like, oh my god, we don't have to use shivs. This is amazing. Do you know how long it's been since I've been in a proper gunfight? And like
all their like bloodthirsty shenanigans were just Martine. Is Martine the one with the teeth?
Yes, Martine has filed her teeth down into like fangs, and I love her so much. And then there's this other woman towards the end where they're like, spoiler, they got off the prison. A couple of them got off the prison ship. It's not a spoiler if I don't say who. And one of them, they're having like this conference and being like, how are we going to lie low in this society without giving away that we are definitely mass murderers who were supposed to die on this ship? So they're like, okay, so we can't do any more murders. And one woman goes, like, no never? I don't get ever? Like, and
not even for
she's not even like the most outwardly bloodthirsty. She was just the one who was just like, ever? And I just loved them so much. And they, like, I don't know if I texted you this or if I put it on a Goodreads thing, but like these maniacs, and they are maniacs.
They are.
I have really good communication skills. Like they communicate way better
when they're not
than normal people
trying to outshiv each other.
Right.
When they're actually talking and not stabbing.
When they're trying to make a plan and they're trying to figure out like, or trying to communicate how far you can trust me.
Yeah. And then like Dred and what's his face? JL. Their whole like, when they do something that the other person's like, you can't do that again. They always have a really good conversation about it.
There's this moment in the second book where JL, they have a thing going on at that point, but like they haven't worked out all the kinks. And so at one point he goes off in like the dawn of, I mean, like, they don't have real hours, so they have times where the lights go dim.
He essentially goes on a suicide
He does.
mission.
He steals the single gun that they had stolen from these mercenaries, and he goes off and hides in the rafters so that he can, like, snipe a couple of them, and doesn't expect to come back. And when he does get back, Dred is so angry. She's so furious, but, like, after a little bit, she's like, okay, I'm not actually angry. I was really fucking worried about you. You're not allowed to do that anymore because it hurts me.
Yes.
And
if you must do something like that, like, you have to at least tell me
yes,
that you're gonna do it.
And so later on, each of them, at least once, tells the other, okay, I'm gonna go do this thing. You cannot come.
You can be mad about it, but you're not
But I'm
coming.
telling
yeah,
you.
But I'm telling you.
Just, like, ridiculous communication skills.
Yeah.
And I just...
Murder.
I know.
Mass murder.
And I just... And, like, Dred walks around. She's... What is she called? The
Dred Queen.
The Dred Queen, yeah. So she wears chains around her arms and legs, both as armor, and, like, she unwraps them to, like, break people's neck. And and, like, one of the guys who helped put her on the throne he's just fucking enormous, and he has this giant axe that no one else can lift. And just, they would be villains multiple times over in any other book.
Right.
But in this one, like...
They're protagonists.
Yay! They're all, like, killers, but we love them anyway.
Yay!
And Dred is the most prolific female serial killer ever, and laughs when people are like, oh yeah, your body count was 40 people.
Yep.
Try 200.
Yeah.
200 bitches. And, like, I really liked... They wanted to study her, and so she ended up in, like, a supermax prison first.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And so she started off in a supermax prison because they were like, oh, there's something wrong with this woman. We want to find out what makes her different from other women who obviously don't kill people or whatever. And she has, like, a teensy tiny bit of psychic power around empathy. So she can read someone's emotions, and if she tries really hard, she can influence them. So she was just so rabidly furious when she was in Supermax. So she caused a couple of prison riots, and they never figured out how she did it, but they knew she did it, and they were like, okay, you have to go on this prison ship. Yeah. I love them so much. I love it when killers, hardcore killers, have, like, friendships.
Yeah.
And save each other.
Yeah.
It just warms my dead heart.
Yes, your famously dead heart. It's such a good dichotomy.
I love it so much. So I read the first one twice. I read the second one once or twice. Because I blew through the first two. And I was partway through the third, and I thought, like, something happened, and I ended up going a week without it. And I was like, I'm just going to start over.
With the whole trilogy?
The whole trilogy.
Yay!
Because they're, like, little mass market books.
Yeah.
They're not
they were
long.
so fast. Yeah.
If I ever figure out how to rebind books, those are the ones I'm going to do. Because the covers are all beat up and stuff.
They're not that
I mean, they're a little bit... Also, I don't really like the second and third covers. I like the first one.
Yeah,
with the, like,
first
green
one's good.
bits.
Yeah. But, yeah, you could do something really awesome with those.
Yes. If I could marshal
some good chain art.
Yeah, I know. And if I could marshal any kind of
guns.
artistic ability, that's what I would do.
Yay! So that was the Dred Chronicles. So those were my Smack
Fucking
Shelf
love
books.
them.
There were a couple other ones, and I don't know that... Oh, I read Remote Control by Nady Okorafor, which was really good. I had the same... You had talked about it on a previous episode, and I felt kind of the same way, that, like, it was really well written. It was very, like, vignettes, and, like, the vignettes were really good, and then the ending was very, what just happened?
Yeah.
But really well done.
Yeah.
And then one of the DNFs was a good quality read, but boy was it rough.
Which one was that?
That was Tell Me I'm Worthless.
Oh, you did read that one.
Yeah. And it was, and, like, that's what everyone said, that's what you said, and it wasn't that it was rough, it was that It was rough, and also I didn't like either.
Yeah, they're not supposed to be likable. And the more, like, the farther you get into it, the less likable they are.
Right. And it was a lot of just, like, soaking in the badness instead of, like, why are we here?
Yeah.
Why are we with these characters? Not a whole lot of plot, and more like a distillation of the worst of humanity.
Yes.
And I got to that, and this was another one that I audiobooked, and maybe it would have been better if I hadn't, but when...
I don't think I would have wanted to audiobook that one. That one...
When there was the, like, blog post with the guy going off on, like, a transphobic, anti-Semitic, misogynistic, like...
Did they read it?
Nonsense. They read the whole thing. And I, like... and it was so long. And it took up, like, the whole... I was driving to the gym, and it was, like, at least half of the trip to the gym was just this really awful rant. And I was like, why am I listening to this? And then I was like, okay.
I would not have...
for me.
I would not have made it through if it had been audiobook.
But, obviously, quality writing.
Yeah.
And really came from a place of, like... pain and emotion, and I mean, like, it was just like, it was so real.
Yeah.
And it was just so much of, again, like, the worst corners of humanity, and I was like, I don't want to look at the worst corners of humanity right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... I mean, like, I think I said in my review online that when I finished it, the only book I could think of that came anywhere near as close to being as dark and as gruesome and as unrelentingly just horrible was Night by Elie Wiesel.
Which I also managed to dodge my entire life.
I read it a couple of times in high school. But for those of you who do not know, it is a memoir of the Holocaust. Of real stuff. Tell Me I'm Worth was rough. I keep thinking, and like, I got to the end and I was like, oh, I should reread it. But I was like, I can't reread it. I don't think I can reread it.
That's another haunted house one, and there were chapters with the haunted house, and I loved those. I was like, okay, those are the bits I was like, okay, tell me more about this haunted house situation and get us...
And it happened kind of late.
Yeah, I think I got halfway before I was like, they haven't even crossed paths again to talk about whoever got left behind in the haunted house.
Yep. And when they, in the first half, when they were talking about, oh, somebody got left behind in the haunted house, like, I didn't understand how horrific and brutal an action that was, that they, like, when they go back and she's, like, not even, like, her bones are, it's just really bad.
Oh, dear.
I think about that a lot. More than I should. So it has, like, a lot, like, we're sort of overwhelmed by it, but, like, it has an incredible amount of literary merit as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's well written.
Yes.
And it shines lights on things that, you know, that we don't look at but should.
Yeah.
As a society. But it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
When I bought it at...
I think you bought it at the North Park Book Fair, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. And as it was one of several books I was getting checked out for, and the woman who was checking me out stopped and was like, make sure you pay attention to the content warnings at the beginning of this. They're not messing around. And I was like, okay, I'd read them anyway, but, like, make sure you read the content warnings.
Emphasize this again. It's a rough ride. And maybe don't get the audio.
Yeah.
Maybe don't do that.
Did you not do any of the reading? All audiobook?
Yeah, it was all
That's
audio. I did, like, speed it up. But
no.
It would have... I probably could have ripped it off more like a Band-Aid if I had not done that. But soaked in it way too long.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple of book club reads, but the one I really do want to plug is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabriel Zevin.
Is that the time travel one?
No.
Okay.
That is a book that I have no business liking as much as I did. It is about...
What?
It is about two people, a boy and a girl, who meet when they're kids.
Okay.
And have this, like, kind of, like, on-again, off-again friendship from that point when they meet as kids to established adults. Mm-hmm. And what happens at the beginning and the present, there's some flashbacks to past stuff, but in the present, when they're both, like, in college, they cross paths just, like, randomly in a New York subway station or something. And they see each other across this crowd, and they reconnect, and the guy's, like, let's basically, maybe not there on the spot, but eventually they land on let's make a video game together. And that's what they do. And it's all about how they basically build this video game empire off of like this game that they made when they were in college that became huge.
Wow.
And from those proceeds, we're able to build this company. But it's like more about their friendship and about family and about grief. And they have this very like, there are a lot of times they have no business being friends. but the whole conceit of the book is they are the most important person to the other, and that's how it's always going to be. And like how that has repercussions at different stages of their life.
Yeah.
So when they're not getting along and they're being awful to each other, that's where I'm like, I had no business. And like, he's not super likable. She's not super likable. They both make bad decisions. There's one I almost called him an NPC, and that's like a joke. Like, I think that starts at an awful thing to say to him, like his college roommate, and he's the best character in the whole book. He's so good. And he basically takes care of Sam. Sam is the guy. Sadie is the girl, I think. Pretty sure. And
that's a weird couple of, like, a pair of names to give.
Yeah.
S.A.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'd slide right over
right
on the page.
And Marx is the roommate. And Marx very much...
Marx, like, Groucho Marx?
Yeah.
Okay.
And very much falls into this, like, we're friends, and I'm gonna take care of you.
Aww.
Because Sam comes from this really, like, a poor background and has this whole thing with his foot, so he's disabled, and doesn't like thinking about the fact or acknowledging the fact that he's disabled. And Marx comes from this very privileged background, and they're both half Asian, or Marx is half Korean and half Japanese. It's one of the, like, Sam is half Korean, Marx is at least half Japanese. But anyway, they have this, like, sort of shared Asian American heritage thing going on. But Marx comes from this very privileged background, and Sam doesn't. And Sadie comes from, like, Sadie and Sam both grew up in LA, but in very different neighborhoods. So Sadie comes from this very privileged white family in Beverly Hills. But they both end up not at the same college, but both on the East Coast. And Marx, at one point when, like, their relationships are kind of... Marx is, like, the peacekeeper, kind of. So he becomes friends with both of them and, it, like, basically feeds them so that they can do what they have to do to make the video game company work. So he takes care of all the everyday minutia. And at one point, when Sam's being a jerk, he says to Marx, like, you're the NPC. Like, you're not an actual, like... And Marx is very, like... He lets that roll off his back and eventually becomes like an inside joke between all of them. But obviously it's like an awful thing for Sam to say in the moment. And that's like the kind of thing where I'm like, I shouldn't like this book. I simply, as me, I see why, as someone who's now also like loving it against my will, I see why it got as big as it did.
Yeah.
Because it was just so well written, so interesting, so emotional. And just, like, so every character, even when they were being awful, they were so relatable. And then we get, like, something from the point of view of one of their parents. And that would be, like, ouch. And then we get a point of view from, like, the grandparents. And that would be ouch. And we get one from, like, the friend. We get, like, a whole part from Marx's point of view. And that was, like, ow, my heart. And then, like, and all these, like, awful things that happen, all these great things that happen, and how they grow as people, and how the relationship comes and goes. And spent most of the last part of the book crying.
I feel like that tracks.
And there's a really big spoiler that I really want to get into, but I don't know that I want to get into it. Because I don't know if you want to read it, and I can't talk about it if you ever want to read it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about it,
okay, good.
But I may or may not keep it in the episode. We'll see. Future Gabi here again. I spend pretty much the rest of the episode freaking out over the spoilery bits of tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. But if you want, feel free to fast forward to about the hour and 6 minute and 20 second mark for the remainder of the episode. So what happens, like 100 pages maybe from the end, they're all set up back in California with their video game company. I think at this moment, Sam and Sadie are talking at this time. They're off doing promotional stuff across the country. And there is a mass shooting. because they build an Animal Crossing-esque game, kind of, like a mass multiplayer or whatever, and there's this mayor within the game that, like Sam's avatar, and this takes place in, like, the 80s, 90s, and at one point when San Francisco was allowing gay marriages, 2 of their colleagues were like, this may be our only chance. Like, they could take this away anytime. So they all go up to San Francisco and have this beautiful wedding, and then they undid it, like, however, I don't remember if it was like a week later or a month later, but in response to them removing all those marriages, Sam, within their game, set up marriage ceremonies for all the people who wanted to go into the game and get married within the game.
That's so nice.
Which caused a lot of backlash in the real world, predictably. And these 2 people who were very mad about queer people
in a video game.
And this left-wing agenda showed up and started shooting and killed Marx. And so there's, like, a whole, like, then we get, like, that whole chapter from Marx's point of view.
Oh, no.
There's, like, this back and forth between, like, the mass shooting as it's happening, him trying to play peacekeeper and trying to talk them down, but also, like, directing people to go to the roof.
Yeah.
And trying to get the authorities to come, but also trying to get these people to just leave. Trying to, like, you know, learn their names and be like, do you really want to do, like, Sam isn't here right now? Because they're looking for Sam.
Right.
And at that point, Sadie and Marx are dating. I don't remember if they got married, but they're like have a kid on the way. And
oh no.
And then Marx gets shot, is in the hospital for a long time, basically saved everyone else by doing what he did. But then, like, because of that, like, it's one of a million things to instigate a Sam and Sadie falling out, because Sadie loses it and is like, if you had been there, Marx would still be alive, and it's hard to come back from saying something like that. So I was having... And then we get, like, back when, like, Marx met Sam and all this stuff, and then that's where the, like, title of the book came from, because when they met, he was practicing lines for Macbeth, and... like, stood up and gave the Macbeth speech, and I was like, oh no! And then I was gone for the rest of the book.
Just sad.
So I really loved it, and I'm really mad about
tragic.
it.
Yeah, that sounds like something you'd be mad about.
It was just so beautiful, and had so many great lines. And it was just, like, hard to not really feel for every character. And the author did some really interesting things. Like, every part was... written a little bit differently. Like, there's one part called Both Sides, which is the name of the second game they made. That's like a sort of a multiverse thing, like that there's a real world and there's a fantasy world. And the way she wrote that part was like she'd have a part of the chapter from Sam's point of view and as part of the chapter from Sadie's point of view. And it would be like how they're both seeing the same things happen.
Right.
And how they're both taking the same events, but how it's like very different.
Yeah.
And then there's, like, the chapter after Marx dies is this whole, like, is completely as if you're a character in their next game. And that game is, like, kind of like a love letter reaching out from Sam to Sadie, being like, because at that point, like, Sadie's checked out. She can't be at the company. She doesn't want to be involved. And Sam's like, he was my friend, too. I'm also grieving, but, like, someone had to be here to keep... everyone else going.
Oh my god.
And like a year or two in, he like builds this game based on like the Oregon Trail, which they both loved as kids, but it's also like this massive online thing. So he like builds all these like Easter eggs in and like as almost like a trying to like give her a vehicle to like work through her grief. So he like codes in a Marx character in the game where he can like be there forever. And, like, they're Easter eggs if she goes to look for him, they can have a conversation.
I'm not reading this. I can't do that to myself. How did you end up reading this?
It was a book club book!
Your family or your friends?
Family. It was Kat's pick.
Kat betrayed you!
She did.
Oh my god.
And I think everyone kind of feels the same way. I might be a little bit more rabid about it than anyone else is, because I think it hit that part of me that's most like my dad. And I'm like, this is the shit that my dad is gonna eat. He's gonna love this so much.
Ugh.
But boy,
I
was
mean,
that.
Of all things, I can't read books with mass shootings.
And at one point, I said something to Mom, like early on, I was like, Marx is the only person in this book who deserves nice things. And didn't clock a face at that time. And then, like, the shooting started.
Uh-huh.
And, like, the first hint you get that something bad is happening. While they're doing the promotional event, someone says, hey, don't you have a company out in California? We just heard, like, some tech company, not video game company. They say some tech company just had a shooting. And they're like, oh, that's weird. And then they go off to do something else. And then I think Sam is checking the news and sees that it's their company, or, like, checks his phone and there are, like, messages from people. And he goes to talk to Sadie, and then they're trying to get Marks to find out if everyone's okay. And then the last thing they get is a text from Marks saying, everything's fine, just going to talk to you later or something. And then, like, that's, like, the last thing anyone hears from him.
Oh.
I know. I don't remember where I was going with that.
I don't either.
But yeah. So I don't know.
We're both, like, staring into the middle distance. I didn't even read it. Oh my god. That's so upsetting.
It was so well written.
Oh god.
And it kind of ends with this whole, like, full circle, like... Because, again, like, the book's about Sam and Sadie. Oh, right, that's where I was going with it. That text happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, Mom, tell me Marks is okay. And her face telegraphed the whole thing. And I was like, no! No.
Oh no. That's so sad.
But it's like, I can't hate... I got to the end and I was like, I want to reread this so badly because it's the type of book that you could pull out so many tender, juicy goodies out of it. And so many, like, Easter eggs and so many things that relate back to other things and so many good metaphors. And I was like, but I don't think I can read that part again. Ah! So that was that. And those were all my books, and now it's your turn. So, because it has been so long since we got to hang, this episode went a little long. So we're gonna just call it here for part 1. And you'll just have to tune in next month for part 2.
And then we'll get into the book holidays.
Book holidays! Oh, yep. I guess at this point that will be a few months down the road. But eventually...
Okay. We never do anything on time.
Nope. Everything's a couple months behind, and that's okay.
My whole life is a couple of months out of date.
Ooh, and by then we'll have started bingo.
I know. I was just thinking about that.
Book holidays and beginning of summer bingo! So much to look forward to!
Here's hoping that all of the covers have flowers instead of insects.
Regardless of what's actually inside. Here's hoping you have a great bestie who will help you burn the world down to save your wife. Thanks for listening. This has been another episode of Infinite TBR.
You can find us online at infiniteTBR.com. You can email us at itbrshelf@gmail.com. And we're also on Instagram at
Infinite TBR Podcast.
And individually on Instagram
at Gabalodon, which is like Megalodon, but with Gab in the front of it.
And at what_Smack said, because Instagram locked me out of at what Smack said. So
here we are.
Here we are. See you next time.